Today, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of going to seminary, what advice should guide your choice in attending and choosing a seminary, and what are the costs and pros and cons and benefits and risks of such a choice. Here we go. Seminary could absolutely ruin your life, or it could be the door that you've been meant to open for your entire life. That most people who attend seminary don't make the appropriate considerations. They don't treat it as a consequential decision. Even though this decision will cost tens of thousands of dollars, take thousands of hours away from their family, and offers no guarantee of employment in an oversaturated and overqualified ministry market, many aspiring pastors throw themselves into debt and into destruction just for the fetish and novelty of it. Now, if you do attend seminary, you ought to ask the basic questions which will guarantee your ability to extract from seminary the maximal amount of value. If you follow the advice that I'm about to give you, you will have an advantageous head start past most of your seminary peers, and you likewise secure the highest probability of gainful ministry employment afterwards. Piece of advice number 1. Pre-decide the denomination in which you will pursue ordination credentials. Achieve them as soon as possible. There are 2 reasons to have your denomination pre-decided before you go to seminary. First, if you can be taken under care or sponsored by your church, the language kind of varies from denomination to denomination. Most worthwhile seminaries will offer you an immediate 50% scholarship. Now, second, by staying formally connected to your denomination throughout your seminary education by being under care or sponsored or whatever, you become a hireable option for them by remaining in their eye. Now, this is a formal reason, which is the financial incentive of the scholarship, and an informal reason, which is a networking incentive to choose your denomination before you even enter into seminary. Now, some seminaries offer special scholarships to denominations affiliated with the seminary. So this is the case, for example, with Presbyterian churches like the PCA and OPC at Westminster Theological Seminary. I believe you get a special scholarship if you're under care by a PCA church or something like that. And the same goes, for example, for like an evangelical free church at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. And that applies probably to Lutheran seminaries, I would imagine, and on it goes. Now, if you fail to become sponsored by your church or denomination before you attend seminary, your chances of gainful employment in full-time ministry after seminary drastically decrease. And more than that, you will likely pay more for your seminary degree. So make sure you pre-decide the denomination in which you will pursue ordination credentials and achieve those credentials and achieve that formal sponsorship by them as soon as you can. Number 2, get your MDiv. Don't get an MA, get an MDiv. Don't waste your time with a master's in theology or a THM. They are wastes of time and they are wastes of money. These degrees mean almost nothing to parachurch ministry employers, and if you seek a pastoral position, the hiring ministry or the hiring committee is going to ask you, why didn't you get your MDiv? The MDiv requires you to train in both of the biblical languages, Greek and Hebrew. It requires you to train in counseling, preaching, theology, church history, and it only takes a year longer than a stunted 1 or 2 year master degree. If you're set on going to seminary, there is no reason not to get an MDiv and every reason to get the MDiv. To achieve anything less would be to needlessly waste your time and money, and you might as well just listen to a few good theology podcasts, because an MA is going to be far less employable of a degree than an MDiv. More than this, an MDiv is more valuable to doctoral committees if you plan on pursuing a PhD after seminary. So the MDiv basically, it credibly indicates to prospective doctoral advisors that you are more than just a theology egghead, right? That you actually have a mind to serve the church and do good in the world. And the only reason not to get an MDiv is if you are literally only attending seminary to better understand a particular discipline, right? Like as a novelty degree, for example, if you're getting in like apologetics or Hebrew, and if employability is not your primary concern, if that's the case, then a full MDiv would probably be a waste of your time. But if you're actually going to seminary for the sake of your career, you must get an MDiv. Number 3, never pay full price for seminary, ever. Never pay full price for seminary unless you are independently wealthy, unless you are Elon Musk, in which case, hi, Elon. If you pay full price for your seminary degree, you have been scammed. There is no reason you shouldn't qualify for some degree scholarship, even if you're a white male. As I mentioned earlier, good seminaries offer scholarships just for being sponsored by a denomination. If you're not currently sponsored by a denomination, it might be worth the $20,000 you save over 3 to 4 years of study to wait to go to seminary until you can get sponsored by a denomination that your goal seminary honors through a scholarship. And if the seminary to which you're applying doesn't offer such a scholarship, don't go to that seminary. It's not worth it. A good seminary will have these scholarships. A bad seminary won't have these scholarships. Okay, you need to go to a better seminary because they're certainly going to charge you money like they're a good seminary. So don't waste your money on a bad seminary. And one of the ways that you know a seminary is bad is if they don't have any scholarship opportunities. And one of the ways that you know that seminary is really good is if they have a lot of good seminary opportunities, good scholarship opportunities in partnership with the denominations, and I have a lot of external connections and incentives to get connected to jobs and to come to the seminary and opportunities to bring students in. That means there's a lot of dynamism there, a lot of activity there. That means there's a lot of stuff going on, and you want to insert yourself, especially if you're going to seminary for a career, you want to insert yourself into a place where there's a lot of career momentum, because you're going to be studying a lot of academic theology and a lot of things which are academic, and it'll be good to be in a place that already has a lot of career momentum going for you that you can just kind of plug and play once you get there, and career opportunities will just unfold, especially if you're undercarrying a denomination. So never pay a full price. Number 4, consider the alternative. Consider not getting a theological education, okay? This is important. This is important for you to do. This is the moment that you may need to muster the strength to make a very difficult decision. Seminary may not be right for you. And I've met a lot of guys in seminary who drop out because they realize they made a vanity decision when they went to seminary and they shouldn't have gone. And they moved their wives, they moved their kids, and they got there and they realized, this was a big mistake. And you need to have a come to Jesus moment about your desire to go to seminary and realize, is this something I need to do? One way to diagnose whether you may not be a fit for seminary is if you're only seeking to get a degree for vanity's sake. So if you just want to pay $30,000 to get some impressive initials after your name, you should, if you just want the initials after your name, just spend those 3 years, just becoming a chiropractor, literally just be a lawyer or something. Then you'll be vain and rich. And there really are no more worthless letters to have after your name than MDiv. I don't mean that they are bad letters. You can make those letters valuable if you use your education the right way and with the right mindset. But an MDiv is merely an opportunity. It guarantees nothing for you, okay? It indicates nothing, okay? You can literally be an idiot egghead and get an MDiv. You really can. Any idiot can get their MDiv. You need to deeply wrestle with the question, do I need an MDiv? The answer might be yes. For example, if you're pursuing ordination within a Presbyterian denomination, it's a very good idea to get your MDiv, especially from a prestigious seminary. But you need to be absolutely certain. Otherwise, literally just become a dentist and retire early and then go to seminary after that, right? Number 5, go to a prestigious seminary. Okay, so it may sound kind of vain to suggest that you go to like a prestigious seminary, but it's actually quite not vain. Prestigious seminaries have more money and can therefore afford to hire better professors and thereby offer a higher quality of education. Prestige actually means something. So in this regard, we might also articulate this advice differently. So we might say, go to seminary in order to study with a particular professor and spend all your time annoying the living daylights out of that professor. That's always been my philosophy, and I've always benefited from it. And I've always made friends with those professors that I annoy the living daylights out of, because a good professor, that's why they will be at seminary, to get the living daylights annoyed out of them. And I almost went to Wheaton Graduate School for their biblical exegesis program, but when I visited Wheaton while G.K. Beale was still there, and I wanted to go there because I think Beale and Carson had just come out with a dictionary of the use of the Old Testament and the New. And Beale looked at me in the eyes and he said, listen, I'm moving to Philadelphia next month to teach at Westminster Theological Seminary. You should go there and study with me there. And I said, okay. And I went to Westminster Seminary in order to study with G.K. Beale, and I annoyed the living daylights out of him. And I made him earn every penny of my tuition money, and it was 100% worth it. It was 100% worth it. I studied with one of the world's foremost experts, if not the world's foremost expert, on the use of the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I learned that topic better than most doctoral students learned it at other seminaries and universities that didn't have world experts. And at the same time, I got to read Van Til and Bavinck and Calvin and Turretin and Voss and Hodge on the side. And that was nice. And if you go to seminary that lacks prestige, you will miss out on the opportunity to know as much as you can about the Bible and theology. But you'll spend the same amount of time and money in the process. So don't underserve your preparation for the next 40 years of labor because you were willing to settle for like a subpar school so you didn't have to commute, blah, blah, blah. No, find a prestigious institution. Pick a professor that is a world expert in a topic that captivates you and do everything you can to study there for free. If you try long enough and are calculated and strategic enough, it is not difficult to accomplish this. Number 6, go to a confessional seminary. So you can tell the difference between students who attended a seminary like Trinity Evangelical Divinity School and students who attended a seminary like Westminster Theological Seminary or Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. Even though the theological confession at Southern, I think, is technically the Baptist Faith and Message, which isn't really confessional in the sense that I mean, but the school functions kind of almost like a 1689 school because of Al Mohler's presidency there, which is very similar to the way Westminster Theological Seminary functions, which is kind of what I'm talking about. So it means they function out of a very specific and exhaustive or not exhaustive, but rather comprehensive confession like the Westminster Theological, or like the Westminster Confession of Faith, like the 1689 Confession. And students from confessional institutions, listen, I can tell the difference between a student who graduated from Trinity and a student who graduated from Westminster just by looking in their eyes. Just by looking in their eyes. There is an unreplaceable confidence that only comes from working hard through the biblical languages and the original sources of Christian theology from a confessional perspective. Okay, the average evangelical master's level theological education will essentially give you a first-year Bible college education. And institutions like Westminster and Southern they can get a bad reputation for being like a little too militant, like borderline abusive sometimes, but there is no questioning the higher quality students that churn out because students are actually forced to combat or accept a specific viewpoint, and that it's forged in fire at these seminaries. And the average evangelical degree will take you a mile wide and an inch deep. But the few confessional seminaries that are out there, they will take you a mile wide and a mile deep. There's a reason that a majority of evangelical professors in America have at least one degree from a confessional school. It's funny, you know, like some of the foremost professors at most of the major evangelical seminaries, almost all of them went to Westminster Theological Seminary at one point. And without a confessional education, without the experience of going to a confessional school, it's highly likely that you won't be getting your money's worth from that seminary. Even Tom McCall at Trinity went to Calvin and studied under Richard Muller, even though McCall himself is a Wesleyan, which is very opposite of sort of the Calvinistic emphasis at Calvin. You see, he was put through McCall put himself through the fire at Calvin, and you see it in his eyes. And you see the same thing in Van Hooser's eyes, who went to Westminster. And a lot of these guys, you go to a confessional school, you get a fire, you get a certainty. I can tell. I can always tell. And I know a guy who went to Trinity. I was at Trinity. I went to Westminster for my MDiv. I went to Trinity for my PhD to study with Van Hooser. And I know a guy during my time at Trinity, and every year during his 4 years, he was there for his MDiv while I was there for my PhD, I would ask him like what more he knows about God now. And he could never give me a straight answer. And it's because the school never pushed him on his heels or gave him a reason to operationalize his theology in a polemical way or in an argumentative way. Confessional schools will push you on your heels. They will say, this is the way it is. Whereas at a place that's like Moody or Trinity or something like that, they'll give you like a 5 views book and be like, huh? What do you think? Huh? And you don't get the same fire. It was just sort of in one ear and out the other. And most non-confessional seminary students have that same kind of limp-wristed theology that they come out of seminary with. And if that's what you want, then fine. Then that's great. Listen, there's a place for that. There's a place for limp-wristed theology. I don't know what it is, but their overall operational theological knowledge at these sort of bland evangelical seminaries doesn't really change much during their tenure. And that's a very low value for several tens of thousands of dollars and several committed years of work. If you're going to go to seminary, it better fortify some stuff for you or change some stuff for you. Otherwise, what was the point? Might as well just buy an MDiv online somewhere, right? My sort of conclusory remark here might as well just be that most people who attend seminary do so without making the appropriate considerations. Do not waste your time and your money. Okay? Don't waste your time and your money going to seminary if you're not willing to make the appropriate considerations. Don't dishonor what you believe is the call of God on your life through laziness and poor execution, and don't waste that call at a bad seminary. Don't waste that call in a seminary that's not really going to change you and transform you. Don't strap yourself in thousands of dollars of needless and excess debt by not doing the due diligence of getting a scholarship you could have gotten if you had just waited a year and prepared the proper paperwork and gotten under care and gotten sponsored by a denomination. Don't strap yourself, don't ruin your life going to seminary when you could have maybe taken an extra semester or an extra year to do more research and to get more scholarship opportunities. Attend seminary strategically. Attend the right seminary and make it the best conceivable training experience you can for the cheapest dollar amount possible. Anything less is a tragedy of poor planning for which you will pay for the remainder of your life.